Welcome back to Crunch Time, a panel discussion about your favorite topic, sports.
Drew Brees is not a top 10 quarterback in NFL history. It's simple as that.
How do you say that? Drew Brees, you cannot argue with stats.
And I know for a fact it's going to be the best team in the East. It is the Toronto Raptors because of Kawhi Leonard.
I'm going to talk about another team that I want to be a Cinderella story so bad, and that's UCF. I talked about it earlier. They're ranked 12th in the nation. They beat Auburn last year in their bowl game.
It's Crunch Time.
Hello and welcome back to Crunch Time, a panel discussion about your favorite topic, sports. I'm your host, Alexis Pearson. Alongside me on the panel tonight is Nick Speliopoulos, who's going for the all-time record in wins. We've got Alex Cotter next to him and Sam Getzinger on the end. Guys, are you ready to talk about some sports? We've got a lot to go tonight. Are you ready?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, so let's start off with some college basketball as we wrapped up the first round with plenty of madness as multiple 12 seeds beat the 5 seeds, including Oregon, making it to the Sweet 16, defeating Wisconsin and UC Irvine. Other surprises as well happening are Duke and UCF going down to the wire and Yale taking LSU down to the wire. But guys, what has your biggest surprise been so far in the big tournament? Nick, what do you think?
I think one of the biggest surprises in the tournament isn't necessarily what surprise you think of. I think that the chalk ruled the brackets, and that surprised a lot of people. Their only double-digit remaining seed, like we mentioned, is Oregon, and that's not a surprise necessarily because they were a top 25 team going into the season. But last time the NCAA tournament had all 1, 2, and 3 seeds, and the Sweet 16 was back in 2009. The rest of the brackets made up of 2 4s and 2 5s, and obviously, as I mentioned, Oregon. I think it surprised a lot of people. They tend to pick those upsets, and it's easy when you think a team's on a hot streak, but I think it's surprising that the chalk took the cake.
I don't really think Oregon surprised a lot of people. They were coming in hot, and Wisconsin was a little bit down, so I think a lot of people thought that that Oregon was going to pull it off. I think LSU was a surprise to me. They've been going through all that drama with their head coach. They didn't do so well in the SEC tournament. They've impressed me a lot. They're shooting 41% from the field. They're led by Skylar Mays, averaging 17.5 points in the tournament. It really says a lot about the leadership and interim head coach Tony Benford to get this team together and putting together a couple good basketball games.
Sam?
Well, I'm going to go with Purdue, the Boilermakers. Even though they were a 3 seed coming into this one, they had a cakewalk against Old Dominion. That was a guaranteed win for them. But Villanova, the 6 seed in that second round, I didn't think there was any chance they'd get past that. Villanova's a defending champion. The way Purdue wrapped up that regular season with 2 losses to the Gophers, the 10 seed in this tournament, twice to round out the regular season, and one in the Big Ten. I didn't think they had any chance in this one. But then you got Carson Edwards, who's dropped 46 points in the last 2 games. Or excuse me, 46 points in the last game, 68 in the last 2 games. And when you look at Tennessee, they've been struggling so far this tournament. Virginia was down at half to a 16 seed for a long time. I think the Boilermakers got that side of the bracket in the bag to go to the Final Four.
See, I think Villanova was down a little bit this year, so it didn't surprise me too much.
But it's still Villanova. That's a defending championship team.
Very good team, but so is Purdue. They're actually one of my favorites to make the Elite Eight at the beginning of the season.
All right, that's all we got for that topic. A lot of good comments that you guys made. I'm going to have to go with Nick on this one. I like the point that some of the lower seeds are actually making good pushes so far, which is always a surprising thing. So Nick gets the first point of the night. Continuing on here with March Madness, the Sweet 16 begins tonight. As a surprise, only 1 team in the Final 16 are below a 5, being Oregon. Not really the most exciting tournament if you're looking for upsets, but a lot of talented teams are still in the pool and a lot of intriguing matchups to look forward to. So what is something you're keeping your eye on in the round of 16? Alex?
You know, in the round 16, you start to get all the good teams in here. I look at the whole weekend in perspective. I think you're going to see Duke, Tennessee, North Carolina come out of this weekend, really make a splash. I think they're the 4 best teams in the tournament. I think Duke has the hardest road ahead of them, though. They have LSU and Michigan that they'll play next round if they win. And Gonzaga, they'll probably have to play in the Final Four, and they're looking for redemption. And I worried about Duke's bench point scoring, but I think that it's going to be Duke, Tennessee, North Carolina coming out of this round.
All right, Sam?
You say Duke has a hard road, and I agree with you, and I don't think Duke's going to get past the Sweet 16. It's not that hard to beat Duke. You take down Zion and Cam Reddish and R.J. Barrett. They've been struggling when he's not on the court. They had a rough 3-3 finish to the regular season when Zion was out with his shoe problem. And Virginia Tech, they beat him earlier this season. That was when Zion was off the court. But if you control him to get him out of the game and just focus on the other ones, I think Virginia Tech's going to win that game. That's why I'm going to pick Michigan State as my champion.
All right.
And yeah.
Nick?
I think the biggest thing that I'm going to be keeping my eye on this weekend is just how well the LSU Tigers perform. I don't think that even though they're going through tough struggles with their head coach, I think that they could make a push to the Final Four, and they definitely have the talent. Like Alex mentioned last topic, they're a very, very solid team, and they've had some good wins, so I think this is something that's definitely doable for LSU, and their biggest test is going to be against Duke.
Who does LSU have on that team that can push them to the Final Four, though?
But that's exactly it. LSU.
I have them getting stopped and leading.
But the thing with LSU, though, is they don't have that one guy that separates them to be that star team. They all have 5 above-average players that can get them to where they need to be.
Yeah, but there were a lot of predictions this season that they weren't going to get past Yale in the first round. That's not a lot of confidence going into LSU.
But everybody was hyping up the fact that Wade was in so much trouble. And I think, I'm not saying LSU is going to make it to the national championship. They're going to stop at Duke, but they can definitely.
You just said they were going to go to the Final Four.
All right, that's all we got for that one. I know this is a time of year that we could talk about this kind of stuff forever. I'm going to give this point to Sam. I like the points that he made about some of the keys to stopping a hot team like Duke. So Sam gets the second point of the night, and we'll move on here. With under a month left in the NBA regular season, the MVP race is tightening up. James Harden is on pace and looking to win back-to-back MVPs while scoring 30 or more points against every team this season. Giannis has the Bucks sitting with the best record in the NBA, and Paul George is playing the best basketball in his career this season. So who do you guys see taking home the award for MVP? And is the race already decided, or is it still up for grabs? What do you think, Sam?
Alexis, Giannis does have the buckets. He's averaging 27.3 points per game, 12.6 rebounds. That's a double-double, and then he's also throwing on 6 assists in there as well. We can say James Harden, he's having a fantastic season. No one's really doing in NBA history what he's doing, but Giannis has turned the culture of basketball around in Wisconsin pretty much. They haven't had a whole lot to look to until Giannis got there, and especially this season when he's totally turned everything around for Milwaukee. And when you take away Giannis on that team, there's not a whole lot that can really push the team to help them do what they're doing now. So I feel like if you want to look at an MVP race, you got to look at a guy who's really turning a team around with not much around him.
Nick?
And I think you have to keep in mind that Giannis is playing in the Eastern Conference where the competition isn't quite as tough. So that's why I picked James Harden. The last 3 MVP winners have led the league in scoring. James Harden obviously has that lead. It's not hard. He averages 36 a game. He's carried his team when his teammates are injured. Clint Capella missed 14 games. Chris Paul missed 24. So I think it's easy to pick James Harden for this because when those 2 players were out, you didn't have to you put it into a hypothetical situation with Giannis. Okay. He's the MVP.
Alex?
Well, I would score, any top 15 NBA player would score 36 points if the other 2 best players are out on the team. The guy averages, he attempts 13 three-pointers a game.
That's absurd.
And it is absurd. And, his assists are down and his turnovers are up. He has the most usage rating out of anybody in the NBA. But look at a guy like Paul George. He's averaging the most points of his career. Russell Westbrook, who won the MVP 2 years ago, his usage rate is down, but he's still getting those triple doubles, and he's affecting his team greatly. His effective field goal percentage is the highest of his career. And, I don't think James Harden is going to be averaging 36 points or even close to that if Chris Paul and Clint Capella are healthy the whole season.
But then again, Chris Paul, he's a great player. Clint Capella, as you mentioned, a great player. But back to my point, Houston, they've had winning ways for a long time.
All right.
Especially, and Milwaukee just hasn't had that.
That's all that we got for that one. Again, really great arguments, you guys. I'm going to give this point to Sam. I think what people often forget about the phrase MVP is valuable, what they do for their team, and I think Giannis has done a lot for turning around the Bucks and bringing a bit of a winning culture to Wisconsin. So that's all that we got for the first round. Coming up after the break, we'll move into some Husky talk and some hockey talk. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we are back after our break. Just a quick scoring recap. We've got Sam in the lead with 2 points. Cotter still has yet to get a point, and Nick has 1 point. So that is our scoring standing as of right now. And with basketball in the rear view mirror, we'll move on to some hockey. So let's talk some Husky hockey first. They are coming off a double overtime loss against UMD in the NCHC Championship. However, they still look promising in the tournament. Now, going into the Frozen Four, is there anything that Husky fans should be worried about? Any players who aren't performing up to standards? how far do you guys think they could get? Nick, what do you think?
Honestly, I think it's pretty obvious what the one concern is for the Huskies, and that is number 11, Ryan Poehling. He went down with a very scary head injury in the semifinals in the Frozen Faceoff against Colorado College. He didn't play the rest of the weekend. He's back at practice, but he's still kind of an X factor. We don't know if he's going to be scratched or not yet. But even though that's a concern, you have to keep in mind that Fitzpatrick has already centered the Nick and Jack Poehling line, so there is that comfort there. We have a solid team. I think we could definitely make it to the Frozen Four in Buffalo, New York.
Alex?
You know, I think there isn't a lot of concern yet. Ryan Poehling going down, you know, one of your best goal scorers on your team. They play AIC in the first round. I think they have a great path to Buffalo. Brett Larson during the overtime periods was playing the deeper lines, getting those guys ready for playoff hockey. But the one thing that is even a bigger concern for me is that Denver, you know, they will possibly play Denver in the next round, and Denver is in the same conference. They're very familiar with how the Huskies play. And Nick, you know, I'm going to quote you here and what you said. You know, the Huskies dominated Denver in the regular season, but it's the playoffs, and the regular season doesn't matter.
All right.
So
we got to move on to Sam here.
Alex, you're talking about Denver, but we can't overlook AIC right away. St. Cloud State's had a tough time in that first round of the NCAA tournament in the past couple of years. And looking at it, Ryan Poehling out, he did skate earlier this week, and you know, how well is he going to perform coming off of this head injury? I believe it was, and I don't think their focus during that Frozen Faceoff was in the right spot. I think they were looking ahead, and that's what caused them to drop the game to UMD, even though it was a really good game. UMD's got a lot of great NHL potential talent, but when you look at the side of the region there, in the AIC, and St. Cloud State's had a struggle in the first round being the 1 seed. We've seen that before. There's Ohio State and Denver, both ranked in the top 10 throughout the season, and even if Ohio State does knock off Denver, that's not a tough team to beat either.
But the thing to keep in mind is Brett Larson has the history of winning a national championship before. He knows what it takes to get to the Final Four.
That's all that we got for that one. I'm going to give the first point of the second round to Nick. I do think Ryan Poehling is probably the biggest concern as of right now, just given how well he's performed this season and kind of the accolades that he has as well. So Nick gets the first point of the second round. We'll stick with more hockey talk, but we'll move on to the NHL. So it's getting late in the season, which means that MVP talk is getting things all mixed up. There's a lot of guys who are some potential MVPs. Kucherov, obviously at the top of the list. McDavid, Line always on the list as well. What do you guys think? Who has been the most valuable player for the team this season? Alex?
It's definitely Nikita Kucherov. I mean, he's a middle-round draft pick, dominating the league this year. You know, he has 83 assists, 121 points. He's 9th in goals this year, and you look at how he's affecting that Tampa Bay Lightning squad. It is unreal. You know, Connor McDavid's another guy that you could argue. He's a great player, but he seems to be playing second fiddle to Kucherov the whole year. But I don't think that you. I think hands down it's Kucherov.
All right,
Kucherov,
Sam?
great player. I'll give you that. But if it weren't for that Lightning team around him, I think you put anybody in that spot and they could put up the numbers he's putting up. 121 points, very impressive. But let's look over to Connor McDavid, as you mentioned before. They got one good line over there in Edmonton, and then from there it kind of drops off a little bit. And if we looked at when we're talking about Giannis and how he's kind of changing the culture around, Connor McDavid's the Mike Trout of NHL right now, and I don't think there's really anybody better than him. He's got great skill. He's got one of the pure skills in the NHL, and just the numbers he's putting up, over 100 points this season, that's pretty impressive.
Nick?
And I disagree with Connor McDavid just because the Oilers aren't going to make the playoffs. You usually don't pick an MVP from a non-playoff team. I'm going to actually have to go with Nathan MacKinnon. The Colorado Avalanche lost Gabriel Landeskog early in the season, and MacKinnon is arguably single-handedly leading his team to the playoffs. They hold that second wild card spot over the Coyotes by 2 points, and it's very, very close, but MacKinnon has led the charge. He's a younger guy, yet he has the talent, and he's starting to get that leadership role in the locker room to give the Avalanche a shot at the playoffs. I think he's definitely matured a lot, and that's why he is the most valuable player.
You know, I would agree. That's another great pick. I just look at how everything is affecting, the team. Yeah, he's single-handedly leading that team, but putting everything together, I think, with Tampa Bay up at the top of the East, very competitive. There's too much parity in the West right now. The East is so competitive right now and how he's playing. I think it's definitely Kucherov. That's
all we got for that one. A lot of good hockey players that we talked about here. I'm going to have to go with Alex on this one just because you look at the Lightning's points and the points that Kucherov is adding up, and it's a little bit scary. So I'm going to have to give Alex the point on that one. He gets his first point of the night, and now we'll move on to some more NHL talk, but we'll talk about some surprises surprises. It's been an interesting season for sure. The West has been pretty tight the whole time. The Lightning have been leading the East for pretty much since the beginning of the season, but still there are some surprising teams who've snuck into playoff spots, and with just about a week to go until playoffs time, what do you guys think? What has surprised you, Alex?
You know, I would have to say Montreal. You know, they have a healthy Carey Price. They trade away, you know, their captain, you know, already one of their best players. And, you know, they're succeeding in an Eastern Conference that's super competitive. 7 out of the 10 top 10 teams are from the East this year. And the fact they've gotten a 40-win mark is amazing. You can make the argument that, you know, Arizona Coyotes, but, you know, the Montreal's played so well this year, especially against the West. They're 20-10 against Western Conference teams. I don't see why the biggest surprise isn't Montreal.
All right, Sam?
I'm going to make the argument for Arizona. This team was a bottom feeder last year. Now they got that second wild card spot. Who would have thought Darcy Kemper was going to be the team that kept the Wild out of the playoffs? That just blows my mind. And there's not a big name on that team. Their leading point getter is just a little over 40 points. That baffles me how they're actually going into the playoffs. And this team, as I mentioned before, they have just been on the struggle bus for the longest time. It's finally good to see, and it's really surprising to see that they're finally making this playoffs if they can keep it up throughout the rest of the regular season.
Nick?
I have to pick the New York Islanders. To start the season, they lost Jonathan Tavares to free agency. That was absolutely demoralizing to that franchise and that fan base. And they missed the playoffs the last 3 years in a row, and their goaltending last year was absolutely horrific. They were last in the NHL in goals allowed per game, 28th in save percentage, but now they are first in both of those categories with 2 solid goaltenders in Robin Lehner and Thomas Greiss. You know, Islanders fans, you have to imagine when you lose your franchise player that you've been a fan of, that you have the jersey in, a majority of those seats, it wrecks a franchise. But when Jonathan Tavares left, the Islanders, handled it well, and they are arguably the biggest surprise of the NHL this season.
Yeah, but does it wreck an
They're
organization,
kind of
or does it help them build with a little bit of bitter taste in their mouth?
But like what Alex said, the West has so much parity. The East is so competitive, and the Islanders are right up there. They're not even getting a wild card spot. They're in with the Metropolitan Division.
That's all that we got for that one. Again, a really good argument. You guys made good arguments for each of your points. I'm going to have to give this one to Sam. I think everyone who looks at the Western Conference standings and sees the Coyotes in that last spot does a spit take every time. I know that I do. So Sam gets the point there. And that'll do it for our second round here at Crunch Time. So coming up after the break, we'll get into some football talk and baseball talk. We'll see you in a little bit. Welcome back to Crunch Time. We've got a tight race going into the final round. Sam leads with 3 points. Nick is right behind him with 2, and Alex sitting there at the bottom with 1. But it's still anybody's game at this point. We'll get right back into it with some shocking news coming out of the NFL as Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski called it a career after 9 seasons with the Patriots. Gronkowski walks away from Foxborough as a 3-time champion and one of the most playful characters we've seen in the NFL. When you look at Gronk, guys, what are your thoughts on the situation, and what does this mean for the Patriots going forward? Nick?
I think specifically for Rob Gronkowski, it's kind of sad. He's been sidelined with injuries his whole career. Even in college, he missed a year completely in college due to vertebral hernia. Then he broke the same arm twice in the NFL. That led to 3 surgeries, concussions, another vertebral hernia, and he also fractured a vertebrae as well. It's so tough, but with everything that Rob Gronkowski has accomplished in his time in the NFL, and some people say it's a little short. Rob Gronkowski goes down as a Hall of Famer. He's second with tight ends and touchdowns. Top 5 receptions and yards. He makes it up there for sure.
It's a big blow to the Patriots. You know, he's arguably one of the best tight ends ever. But, you know, in the injuries, that's a killer for every career. But towards the end of the season, the Patriots kind of did a good job at changing his role. He would stay in block more, and he got less fatigue. I think it could have kept him more healthy. You know, despite the injuries, I think he could play another year or two and been, instead of the best receiving tight end in the league, he could have been the best blocking tight end in the league because he really helped out that New England Patriots running game for that Super Bowl.
Sam?
I'm going to say goodbye to Gronk, and I'm going to say good riddance. He was a joke to the NFL. Honestly, he's retiring. Congratulations. He has enough money to live the rest of his life, but he just wants to focus on partying a little bit more, I'm pretty sure. He doesn't want to deal with this football stuff anymore. You talk about injuries. He hasn't played a full season since his second season in the NFL, and you want to talk about great tight ends. He's not on that list. You got Jason Witten. You got Mike Ditka. You got Tony Gonzalez. He wasn't even the best last season. Eric Ebron was up there and everything too. I think he was just a joke to the NFL. Get him out of there. It's not a blow to the Patriots. They can definitely, with the coaching staff they have and even Tom Brady sticking around, they can definitely grab another tight end.
Tony Gonzalez is an anomaly in and of itself. He is the greatest tight end and will be for the rest of time.
Okay, what about Antonio Gates too? Throw him in the list, dude. That's
Rob
Gronkowski
is a Hall of Famer. Mark my words.
I don't even know
right now. He is a Hall of Famer.
He kept defensive coordinators up late at night, not just only
no, you want to know who
stop
kept
Tom
defensive
Brady.
Okay, that's all we got for that
He's
one.
so strong.
All right, it took a little while to get us to our first yelling match of the day, but there we have it. It was the Gronk argument that got everyone worked up. I'm going to have to give this one to Nick. I think he made a good point about the fact that despite all the injuries he still had an incredible season, and the NFL made a big impact on the Patriots team. So Nick gets the first point of the last round, and we'll move on to our big crunch of the day. In what is expected to be a very exciting MLB season, many teams are hoping their offseason moves will pay off. The Red Sox, Yankees, and Astros headline as some of the favorites on the AL side, and the NL is wide open with a lot of teams in the mix to compete for the pennant. So guys, let's fast forward to October. Who do you see playing in the World Series this season? Alex?
I see it's going to be the Yankees and Phillies. The Yankees did nothing but improve this offseason. For the Red Sox, it's really hard to repeat going back to the World Series. Granted, the Dodgers did it, but winning it's really tough. They added James Paxton, who is a Cy Young prediction winner. Adam Ottavino, re-signing CC Sabathia was huge. DJ LeMahieu and Tulo, adding them helped with the Didi Gregorius injury, filling in for them. The Phillies improved with JT Realmuto, familiar with the pitching division, Andrew McCutchen, Gene Segura. Bryce Harper has changed his preload, so it's a smoother swing, and he's going to have a better batting average this year. He's familiar with the pitching in that division as well, and Rice Hoskins had a great spring, and their bullpen is amazing.
Sam?
You talk about the Phillies and a good player going to a team and just thinking they're going to make an immediate impact. We saw that when LeBron James went to the Lakers. Where they're sitting at now. They're not even going to make the playoffs. So I'm not going to pick the Phillies in the World Series. I'm going to go with the Milwaukee Brewers, and I'm going to go with the Yankees. I do agree the Yankees are a very good team, but looking at this Milwaukee team, I think they have a great chance to get past those Phillies and any other team in the NL because they have a really good outfield. Yelich, Braun, and Kane, that's an all-star outfield if you look at it. And then if Thames can have a big year, Eric Thames, if he can have a big year like he did last season, just hitting those bombs, that's a really good offense they have. The only thing that kind of touches me off a little bit is that starting pitching rotation. It's manned by Hader, but besides that, they don't really have much to go out to.
Nick?
I think that the Red Sox are going to make it back to the World Series, and it's plain and simple enough. Yes, they didn't make a ton of moves in the offseason, and they still don't have Craig Kimbrell, but Craig Kimbrell hasn't gone to a different team. That team is the exact same with a healthier Nathan Eovaldi in their rotation. I don't think that the Yankees, the Yankees and the Red Sox will both get in the playoffs, don't get me wrong. But then moving over to the National League, I don't think it's going to work in Philadelphia just because those long-term deals don't work out. And I don't think it's going to be the Brewers because you lost Joakim Soria to the A's. 3 of your solid relievers moved into the rotation, and 2 of the other relievers that were left in the bullpen are starting off the season on the injured list in such a heavy battle in the NL Central with the Brewers, the Cardinals, and the Cubs. I don't like these games in March and April. They matter, and I don't think the Brewers have what it takes in this early start with so many injuries to make it to the postseason. They're going to get a wild card spot, and at that point, it's one game.
Yeah, but mind you, Red Sox, they don't have a closer right now. Their closer's sitting on a couch.
Right
it is struggling. Their
bullpen
top
hasn't
closer
changed
in the league for the Red Sox is sitting on the couch right now.
The only change in their bullpen is the subtraction of Craig Kimbrell. He might even sign with the Red Sox. Yes, they don't have a closer.
And I don't think the Red Sox are going to pay him what he's asking, but you can't overlook Toronto either.
They're not. And I'm going to go against your thing here with the Brewers, too. Ryan Braun and Lenzer Kane are getting old, and Christian Yelich is a
really high productive players.
They're still. And Christian Yelich is a great player, but I don't know if he's going to be able to repeat his MVP caliber season that he had.
He's got the experience.
All right. That's all that we got for our last topic of the night. I am going to give the big crunch to Nick. I like the points that he made about the Red Sox not changing. I think sometimes a lot of people think that a team that makes a lot of changes or makes big additions is going to be the team that makes a splash. Sometimes the teams that keep everything the same when it worked the first time is what will help them in the next season. So that's all that we have for this episode of Crunch Time. When we come back, we'll show you who our winner is and wrap things up. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and folks, you are witnessing history right now because Nick Speliopoulos is a 5-time in a row winner, breaking, might we add, and in emphasis, Chris Pearson's record. He can't come in here and yell at us because he's busy working audio. So Nick, you are the 5-time champion. The floor is yours.
I just think that it's Crunch Time is a great show. I love this show. It's so much fun, especially when we're with host Alexis Pearson or Sam Getzinger. Sometimes Chris fills in.
You already won. You don't have to be nice to me.
But you know, it's kind of fun because Chris is arguably my fiercest rival on Crunch Time, and to break his record is a lot of fun. But at the same time, I just want to talk about the Minnesota Twins, and I especially want to throw a shout out at Joe Scarella. Joe, you thought that the Indians were going to win this game today, but that was clearly not the case. So thanks, Joe.
There you have it, folks. A little love for the Crunch Time and the Twins. That's all we have here tonight. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next week, same time, same place.